The first step in ignition testing is to connect a scan tool and make sure that the PIP ignition signal data bit says on long before you get involved in ignition testing. Ford doesn't have a lot of ignition data bits on their scan tool, but they do have this profile ignition pickup. If PIP signal states off during engine cranking like this one, you can see we're cranking at 438 RPM, go to ignition and fuel control testing. If you have an ignition scope and the vehicle is DIS, look at the secondary ignition. Measure firing kV. This example is showing us that 4 cylinders are above 25 kV at idle. We want to see it under 15 kV at idle. High kV will shorten the life of secondary insulation, and that includes ignition coils. Here the firing starts high, and it's indicating bad secondary wiring. The firing line here goes up and to the right. That's telling us we have an lean air-fuel mixture. Notice the 4 high patterns also show lean out. That is not a coincidence. Normal patterns, slightly high kV is what we're looking at here. We want to see a minimum of 1 millisecond of spark time. Here we have about 1.5 of spark time. So if we see under 1 millisecond of spark time, go to ignition primary test. Here's another example. The firing line is showing fuel lean out. Go to fuel system testing. Here shows us a lot of turbulence in the cylinder. You want to suspect that the EGR may be leaking or that you have engine mechanical problems. Here the firing is happening outside the cylinder. Suspect a bad wire or carbon tracking at the coil. Here we have bad wires. If you have any of these patterns, go to ignition pattern testing. Now, if you don't have an ignition scope, go to your scan tool and use mode 6 under the Ford Special Test menu. Mode 6 is in the main menu under Special Test. Okay, this will help you determine how many and which cylinders are misfiring. This example shows us that cylinder number 4 is misfiring. All you care about is the results, and it says failed here. Means we failed. Mode 6 doesn't identify the cause of the misfire. You're going to have to do further testing to determine if the miss is from ignition, fuel, or mechanical. Now here is a minimal ignition tester, a spark gap tester. If you're going to use this to test spark, make sure you have fat blue spark. This isn't fat blue spark. This is weak spark. And it, under certain conditions and during those lean outs, this isn't going to fire the plug. Here, this would never fire a plug in a cylinder. So without an ignition scope, your testing will be limited. But you're going to have to go and verify fuel and ignition mechanical problems with separate tests.